So, the book of Romans was the letter that the Apostle Paul wrote in a supernatural, anointed moment, which is what the Bible is. Plenary inspiration. Inspiration in the sense that God spoke deep into his heart. The Apostle Paul was the instrument and vessel of God's work. Romans is pivotal in the Bible, as well as the advancement of the gospel from east to west in 57 AD, when in Corinth, where he had wintered, as what we now know as his third missionary journey. This is 57 AD, before he had actually been in Rome, but God did what God does. He's at work at every matrix level of our lives. Every corner, every open space, every narrow spot, wide spot, God is there. God is everywhere at once, omnipresent. He's all-knowing, omniscient. He can do anything he wants to, anytime he wants to do it. He's the living God. He's omnipotent, all-powerful. In that moment, in 57 AD, Priscilla and Aquila had connected with him in the spot in Corinth where about 25,000 Jewish people had migrated. They had been in 49 AD, had been kicked out of Rome. Priscilla and Aquila were Jewish tent makers. The Apostle Paul, after he was converted from Saul in Antioch, became a tent maker as well. So they connected at a vocational level. But when he heard that they were Jews who had been kicked out, thrown out of Rome, all the Jewish people were, by Emperor Claudius in 59 AD, because there was what he defined as civil unrest. What it was an advancement of the teachings of Christ, that God was speaking in the hearts of Jewish people and Gentile people, and there were Jewish followers of Christ, there were Gentile followers of Christ, and they just could not coalesce. And the Orthodox Jews who rejected the teachings of Christ started rioting. And so that interrupted the Roman way of life, which was hedonistic partying spirit. Hate to interrupt that, right? And so they kicked the Jews out of Rome. Priscilla and Aquila and tens of thousands of Jewish people ended up in Corinth, where the Apostle Paul became acquainted with their story. Now, the Apostle Paul is interested in two or three things. First of all, he's interested in the Roman church, because Claudius died, Nero took over, the Jews could come back. The Apostle Paul is interested in creating a means by which people could just get along so they could advance the gospel into Spain. And so what he's doing successfully here through the letter to the Roman church is showing Jews and Gentiles how they can create unity and agreement, what their agreement is. Now, what he's understanding himself, and he came to grips with himself, because the Apostle Paul was not just an Orthodox Jew. He was the youngest member of the Sanhedrin Council, a Pharisee of the Pharisees, well-heeled, high intellect, well-educated, renowned. Even at 32 years old, when he was converted on the road to Damascus, he was a powerful presence in Orthodox Judaism, which means he knew how to present the claims of Christ in a way where people could find unity. My point here is, you can never find unity until you first have agreement. Agreement. We need to take the effort and the energy to find out what we agree on. If we did that, if you and I did that in our day-to-day lives, we would absolutely expel all misunderstanding, confusion, chaos, division. If we came together as human beings and asked the question, what can we agree on here? You could heal relationships. That needs to be the first thing you do. If you have difficulty in a relationship, you need to ask, somebody needs to ask a question. Well, you happen to be sitting here. And by the way, I mean, this is about the third time I've preached here. You're my favorite group, just so that you know, okay? So to my favorite group, I would say, the whole world asks, who's going to do this? I want to challenge you for you to be the one who asks the question, what can we agree on? What do we agree on? The Apostle Paul is showing the Jewish people and the Gentiles that the way we have unity is to agree on what we agree on. And then just talk about that. You know this great fallacy, we've chosen to agree to disagree. That never works. Because when you agree to disagree, and I'm sorry, I know it feels like I'm stepping on your toes because you probably used that phrase this week, right? You know? But if you do that, all you end up doing is what? Talking about what you what? Disagree on. That's not unity. We need to agree on what we agree on, and that's what the Apostle Paul is showing them. And he starts with the concept of Jesus. And he shows them that in Genesis, Jesus is the seed of the woman. In Exodus, Jesus is the Passover lamb. See, he's starting in the Torah. In Leviticus, Jesus is the law. In Numbers, he's the smitten rock. In Deuteronomy, he's the deliverer. In Joshua, he's the captain of the Lord of hosts. In Judges, he's the prophet. In 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, and 1st and 2nd Chronicles, he's the promised king. In Ezra, he's the scribe. In Esther, he's Mordecai at the gate. In Nehemiah, Jesus is the restorer of nations. In Job, he's my redeemer. In Psalms, Jesus is my all in all. In Proverbs, he's my pattern. In Ecclesiastes, he's my goal and my guide. In the Song of Solomon, Jesus is the satisfier. In the prophets, he's the coming promised one. In Matthew, he's a man among men. In Luke, he's my friend. In Mark, he's the servant. In John, he's my God. In Acts, he's Christ, the risen one. In Romans, he's the doctrine of the church. In the general epistles, he's Christ who's come to infill us, baptize us with his presence. In the pastoral epistles, Jesus is the shepherd. And in the book of Revelation, he's Christ who's come to rule and to reign. Jesus is all throughout the scriptures, from Genesis to Revelation. And it's that presence, that concept that the Apostle Paul is bringing. And I believe that chapter 10 of Romans is such a hinge, because he does it in his original, the original translation was in the Greek language, which has 9 verb tenses. And so the whole concept of salvation, soterion, had so many different levels of help. And we look at it and apply it as our eternal salvation, our inheritance into eternity, which is absolutely the bottom line. But there's so much more than just your eternal life. There's also the day-to-day experience of what you and I face. And I've got some examples from Romans 10 that I want to show you. And then on the other side of these scriptures, I want to make an application for you to see how dynamic that level is into our day-to-day lives. That first one is the concepts from verse 9 and 10. That if you confess the same with your mouth, believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you'll be saved. For with your heart you believe and you're justified, and with your mouth you confess and you're saved. And then verse 13. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. And then just like I was saying, he's addressing the Jewish people in Rome as well as the Gentiles. And I love in verse 20 where he says, and Isaiah, which they all would have, those Orthodox Jews would have known Isaiah. And Isaiah boldly says, I was found by those who did not seek me. I revealed myself to those who did not ask for me. Number one, that concept of believe with your heart is the concept. The cardia is your center, your soul, the cardia is your thought, your will, your emotions. And so there's a concept here that he unleashes that should give us powerful help in our lives, because in God's development of us, especially in the Word of God, his development for us is for you and me to go down deeper. It's for us to build the foundation of our lives on a solid rock, not on shifting sand, but a solid rock, so that when the rains come, the winds blow, and the flood waters rise, that the house of our lives stays standing because of the foundation. So what I'm giving you here with that idea of believe in the heart, the pistios, believe, it's the word for faith. And the way it breaks down here is entrustment. Every thought needs to be entrusted to God. Every feeling that you're processing needs to be entrusted to God first. Every feeling that you have does not need to be processed on social media first. Every drama, all this drama. Every feeling that you have needs to be processed with God and entrusted to him first. It doesn't matter how many collaborators or support group you have behind you. The living God is the most important one. And every emotion. I mean, we baby boomers, we live by the mantra, pack your bags. We're going on a guilt trip now. That roller coaster ride of emotions. And what I'm offering up to you is that the living God, I mean, it is the most powerful concept that I cannot fully explain. The living God chooses for us to entrust him with our emotional thoughts, our emotional feelings. And we need to take them captive and entrust them to God. You and I mean, think about this. You and I are one person among a bunch of people in a worship center. We're one worship center among a bunch of churches that are meeting on a Sunday, and plus that Elkhart County Mighty Church that's called those people that have reserved their seats for the Elkhart County Parade. Let's just, for discussion purposes, call them a church today. We are one county. I didn't mean that with any attitude, okay? We're one county among a bunch of counties in a state. We're one state among 50 states in a country. We're one country among, I think, 144, 147, they come and go, countries on a planet. We're one planet among a bunch of planets in a solar system. Now here's where we get a little bigger. We're one solar system among billions times billions solar systems in a universe. We are one universe among billions times billions. We don't know the zeros. It's infinite of universes in a galaxy. We're one galaxy of billions times billions of galaxies in a microcosm. We're one microcosm among billions and billions and times billions of microcosms in a macrocosm. And we have no idea how many of those there are. The creator of all of that chooses to allow me to entrust him with every thought, every feeling, every emotion I process. Hallelujah. Whew. Number 2. And I get this from, if you confess with your mouth, God raised him from the dead. Every word that comes out of your mouth is like the point of a sword. Words matter. They do. Now, stinks to be you if you got in an argument on the way to church, okay? I wasn't listening, okay, maybe I was. But, you know, words matter. And as evidenced by this idea that our confession, our words need to be the belief of our heart that God is powerful enough to have raised Jesus from the dead. Because Jesus told his disciples many times, I'm going to be down for 3 days, but I'm going to rise. And they never really got that. Now, evidence, I've been to Israel 31 times. And every time I go, I probably go to the Garden Tomb 2 or 3 times. So I've been in that spot more times, I mean dozens and dozens, 50 or 60 times. And it never gets old. I get goosebumps talking about it right now. See the cross, or the skull outline on what they called the way of the cross, Golgotha, which means skull. You can see that carved on the hill, and know somewhere in here is where the tomb of Jesus was. And our confession as a Christian is the belief that Jesus rose from the dead. And God has the resurrection power in his hands, that he can make dead things alive. He can make ugly things beautiful. It's the transformation power of the living God. As we open our hearts and lives to him and confess with our mouth, I believe that God raised Jesus from the dead in the same way, with that same resurrection power. He can take your situation and make it into, and transform it into whatever he wills it to be. I mean, as I was standing there, it just occurs to me, let's just check the record. What other religion has an empty tomb as its founder? Muhammad's tomb is occupied. Buddha's tomb, occupied. Confucius' tomb, Mahatma Gandhi's tomb, Stalin's tomb. They say you can look right through the glass and see him. Every pope, their tombs are all, yeah, you think I'm all scattered over St. Peter's everywhere, every crypt everywhere. Napoleon's tomb, Yeah, although I'll tell you what, that's the biggest crypt I've ever seen for the shortest guy that ever existed, in the biggest room in Paris and the biggest building. I mean, you can't miss it. You stand at the Louvre, go across the river, you can't miss that Napoleon's tomb. But it is fully occupied. You ever been to Graceland? Elvis's tomb? Okay, hold on now. Jesus' tomb? It's empty. And with the confession that comes from our heart, that we do with our mouth, we live and believe in the power of the resurrection. Number 3. God includes everyone. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Now, there's a condition here, that call on the name of onoma kurios. That is the character of the supreme authority. When we call on God, what's part of the transactional issue is that when we come to Him, we make a covenant to follow Him. It's not, God is not a genie that we make 3 wishes to. We need to understand that when we call on God, that my covenant with Him is that I'm going to follow. And the Apostle Paul's trying to show that to both the Jews and the Gentiles in Romans 10. And then finally, I hate to put this so bluntly, but it's right here. When he talks about Isaiah and how I appeared to those who did not seek me, I spoke into those who did not call upon me. God doesn't need us. I need Him. See, what I'm trying to illustrate, Psalm says this. God says in Psalms, if I needed cattle, would I ask you? No. If I needed anything, would I ever ask you? No. God does not need anything from us. But you and I, we are desperate for Him. We need Him. I exist to exalt God. God does not exist to exalt me. We get that sometimes role reversed because we become insecure, and through our insecurity we get all jazzed up and self-importance takes over. And we need to know where we stand here. I exist to serve God. God does not exist to serve me. And God is supernaturally speaking to people all the time, breaking right into their lives. Now, when I hear a concept like this, God doesn't need us, God doesn't need me, it brings me to the 3 most spiritual words in the English language. Number 1, ouch, spelled O-U-C-H. Ouch. God doesn't need me. Ouch. Conviction. God speaks to my heart about something. I was, whoa, that's the ouch moment. And it's followed up by the 2nd most spiritual word. And that word is oops. Spelled O-O. Well, maybe another O. And maybe another O. O-O-O-O. Then somebody said it. P-S. Oops. Now here's the meaning of oops. Ouch is when I realize something. Oops is when I admit to it. Oops means I'm sorry. Asterisk by that. What's happened to us? It seems like You never hear anybody apologize for anything anymore. It's like, I think it's the enemy. He comes to kill, steal, and destroy. I think the enemy has somehow convinced us we never have to say, I'm sorry. Even when we feel the ouch, we don't execute the oops. I realize something, then I need to say, I'm sorry. Now, I mean, you need to mean it. But we need to be apologizing a whole lot more than we do. Now you're definitely thinking I'm listening in on your conversation on the way here, right? And then 3, ouch, oops, and yes. It always needs to be the go-to expression of our heart. Yes. Yes to Jesus. Yes to God. Ouch, oops, and yes. Like I say, you're my favorite group. I brought you a gift. It's in the worship welcome center. It's a gift from my ministry, the Christian Resource Group. It's called Take a Breath and Bring It Down a Notch. It's the Christian group's attempt to say, well, let's bring the drama down. It's from the one verse from the book of Job. I think it'll be helpful. I'm bringing it as a gift so you can save up your money for Kay Hicks's book, After the Water, and Ralph Tubbs's The Journey. You know, you got a lot of things going on here at Crossroads. God raising people up with ideas to go deeper. God bless.